Hi everyone, I've just brought another video for you guys, so let's get started without further ado. Also, remember to like and comment. Tell me which manhwa you'd like me to cover next. Let's do this.
It all began when humanity opened a portal for space travel. From that moment on, human bodies underwent drastic and irreversible transformations. And it wasn't just humans who changed. Monsters appeared out of nowhere, spreading chaos and destruction everywhere. Humanity fought with everything it had, but the war against the creatures left only a trail of destruction and broken technology. To survive in this new world, humans underwent endless evolution, merging with beasts and unlocking the secrets of their own genes. In this new world, the rule was clear: evolve to survive. Continuous evolution was the only chance, with the promise that some could even become gods. And this place was named God's Sanctuary. And it is in this chaotic world that our story really begins, with a young warrior running desperately for his life. He wasn't alone. A group of hunters relentlessly pursued him, and they didn't seem willing to let him escape. Tired of just running, the young man decided it was time to stop and fight. He admitted to himself that he stole the beast soul that the group had obtained. He knew he deserved to be hunted, but he didn't regret it. After all, in this world, the only rule was survival. The logic was brutally simple: either you won or you lost, and losing meant the end of everything. There was no middle ground, and he refused to accept defeat. No matter how difficult it was, the young man was not willing to die there. All this reminded him of when he arrived, a month before. As a newly graduated, talentless person, entering God's sanctuary was his best chance to earn money and support his family. At that time, he was just a rookie. Seeing other warriors with their beast soul armor, the young man dreamed of the day he would have one for himself. It was then that fate put a powerful creature in his path, an encounter that could be his big chance or his tragic end. Without hesitating, the young man advanced to the slaughter. He delivered the final blow to the creature, but the result of that battle was something he could never have imagined. The result of that blow was completely unexpected. He hadn't hit a monster, but a powerful warrior, in a rather embarrassing place. The impact was spot on, and the silence that followed was terrifying. At that moment, the young man realized the catastrophic dimension of his mistake. He was completely lost. The woman turned around, her face red with fury, barely able to form words to express her outrage. She then exploded, questioning what kind of courage he had to attack her like that from behind. The humiliation was evident. Without giving him a chance to explain, she sent him flying with a single kick. The shame was total. In addition to creating a powerful enemy, he was now a laughingstock for everyone in the sanctuary. Alone and desolate, he hid to lament his own failure. Everything had gone wrong once again. To vent his frustration, the young man began hunting the weakest creatures he could find, unloading his anger on easy targets. It was a repetitive job that brought no satisfaction, only reminded him of his own weakness. He forced himself to consume the flesh of the monsters, hoping to absorb genetic points, but the result was almost nil. The protagonist wondered how long it would take to evolve that way. At this rate, it could be years of suffering. He felt trapped, hunting only the weakest monsters because he didn't have the strength or allies to face the stronger ones. It was then that, in the midst of the darkness, something caught his attention. A small golden light shone in the distance. It wasn't just a light. It was a creature, a small golden beetle that was moving slowly towards him. Without hesitating, Han Sen decided to crush the approaching creature. He didn't know what it was, but he wasn't willing to take risks after everything he'd been through. But the attack had no effect. The golden shell of the small beetle was incredibly resistant, repelling the blow with absurd ease. Han Sen couldn't believe what he was seeing. Such a small creature with such a powerful defense. That was definitely not an ordinary monster. Suddenly, the beetle shot through the skies at top speed, leaving a golden trail behind before diving back towards him, and then something incredible happened. The creature transformed into pure energy, a beast soul that enveloped Han Sen and began to mold into his body. The power that emanated was immense. He felt his strength multiply instantly, as if a divine armor was merging with him. With a single punch, he tested his new strength. The power was so overwhelming that he himself was shocked by the destructive capacity he now possessed. A confident smile appeared on his face. After so much humiliation, he finally had real power in his hands. Back in his room, Han Sen decided to extract every last drop of power from the creature. He boiled the remains of the shell to make a genetic soup. He waited patiently, knowing that the process was crucial to absorb all the points that the divine beetle could offer him. The young man was certain that, upon finishing the soup, his attributes would increase even more. It was the perfect chance to accelerate his evolution. But while he was distracted, a strange noise came from the cage next to him. Something was moving in there, and the sound was of something being devoured. He turned around in a panic, realizing too late what had happened. His pet had swallowed the precious soup. Han Sen approached and saw that the animal was completely still. He wondered if the soup's power had been too strong for it. However, a strange energy began to emanate from the creature's body. Its scales were glowing, indicating that something was about to happen. The energy emanating from the creature intensified, and its body transformed into a greenish cocoon. Evolution was happening rapidly, right in front of Han Sen. Suddenly, the cocoon broke open. A reptilian creature jumped out, attacking Han Sen without any warning. The young man was caught off guard by the speed of the attack and barely managed to dodge, shocked by his pet's new form. He braced himself for the worst, but upon subduing the creature, Han Sen found a crystal inside it. He understood right away. That item was the key to evolution, capable of transforming any being into a creature of divine lineage. Meanwhile, Han Sen's family was facing a very different problem. His relatives showed up at the door, demanding their share of the house under the pretext that it was everyone's inheritance. Han Sen's mother, Luo Sulan, tried to explain that there was no way to pay what they were asking. She worried about her children's future if they lost the only home they had, but Han Sen's uncle wouldn't hear any excuses. He made it clear that her financial problems were not his concern. He gave her an ultimatum. Either she came up with the money, or they would resolve the matter in court. The threat was made. It was at that moment that Han Sen arrived. He saw his mother and younger sister, Han Yan, cowering and shaken by the relatives' cruelty. Rage took over him. Seeing his family being humiliated like that was simply unbearable. Desolate, Luo Sulan blamed herself for her weakness, feeling that she couldn't even protect the house that her late husband had left for them. Her tears were proof of the despair she felt at that moment. But Han Sen wasn't going to let this go. He promised himself that those people would pay for what they were doing. With the power he had just obtained, he knew he had a chance. Han Sen was confident that he could reach the level necessary to protect his family and resolve everything. To test his new powers, Han Sen went to Windfall Valley. His target was the Windfall Mantis, a creature known for its absurd speed and blades capable of cutting steel. It didn't take long for his enhanced vision to locate one of the monsters, perfectly camouflaged in the vegetation. The creature was small and almost imperceptible in the tall grass, a predator waiting for the right moment. But suddenly, the hunter became the hunted. The monster was much faster than he imagined. Han Sen admitted his carelessness. The mantis's speed and attack power were incredible, catching him completely by surprise. However, the blow didn't even leave a scratch. The beast's soul armor was impenetrable. With his defense secured, it was time to launch a counterattack. Han Sen's confidence exploded. With that armor, he felt he could dominate anything that came his way. He felt immortal, the only one who could kill, but never be killed. The humiliation of the past seemed like a distant memory, and with a final blow, the hunt was a success. But he didn't stop there. Han Sen exterminated every mantis he found, unleashing all his pent-up frustration. Meanwhile, another person arrived at Windfall Valley, but found the place strangely empty. He wondered if an entire group had cleared the area. The guy started investigating the place, trying to understand what had happened there. He found traces of a fierce battle, so intense that he imagined an entire army would have had to pass through there to leave that trail of destruction. It was then that he realized the truth, and what he saw was much more shocking than any army. And what the investigator saw was not an army, but a single man in an imposing armor. Only one person had caused all that destruction. He couldn't believe it. The guy wondered if he was dreaming, as it seemed impossible that a single warrior was responsible for that massacre. But the shock soon gave way to a business opportunity. He confirmed with Han Sen the price of 1,000 levros for each carcass, impressed with the feat. The deal was sealed. The investigator promised to look for Han Sen whenever he had something of value to offer, and the protagonist went on his way. Without wasting time, Han Sen set off for his next target, a colony of copper-toothed beasts. He needed more resources. The beasts were wild and quickly reacted to the intruder's presence, advancing as a pack to attack. But for the protagonist, they were no match. With a single devastating blow, he decimated most of the pack instantly. He remembered that, on impulse, he hadn't left a single mantis alive to use with his crystal. This time, he knew he needed to capture one of the beasts alive. And so he did, using his energy to subdue the creature without killing it and complete his true objective. Mission accomplished, Han Sen returned to the great gates of the Steel Armor Sanctuary, carrying his new prey. He walked through the bustling city streets, standing out from the crowd. Carrying the enormous copper-toothed beast on his back, he inevitably caught the attention of everyone around him. A group of knights passing by stopped, observing the scene with particular interest. Among them was Shen Tianzi, the tyrant of the sanctuary, and he didn't look happy with what he was seeing at all. Furious, Shen Tianzi shouted, questioning who would have the audacity to trade primitive-level creatures in his territory. He was about to pick a fight with the wrong person. While the tension with Shen Tianzi grew, other warriors prepared for what was to come, stocking up on supplies for the imminent battle. Suddenly, a strange movement was noticed in the distance. A cloud of dust rose from the mountains, signaling that something big was happening. The cause of the commotion was a bloodthirsty berserker, an immense creature that advanced with an uncontrollable fury, ready to destroy everything in its path. The monster plunged into the middle of the soldiers, turning the line of defense into complete chaos. It was a massacre. Han Sen watched the scene, surprised by the creature's overwhelming strength. He had never seen anything like it. The berserker raised his axe over one of the warriors, preparing the final blow without any mercy. But the man was quick and managed to narrowly dodge, escaping certain death as the axe opened a crater in the ground. A silver-haired warrior watched from afar, shocked by the monster's destructive power. Enraged, the man who almost died vowed to end that creature no matter the cost. He launched a series of attacks, but the assaults barely had any effect against the berserker's impenetrable defense. The monster's response was immediate and brutal, throwing the warrior away with a single blow. It was then that Han Sen understood the situation. That was a sacred blood creature, and the difference in power from what he had already faced was simply absurd. The berserker continued its relentless attack, cutting through the men without difficulty. Feeling the pressure, the creature tried to retreat and flee, but the warriors joined together to try to stop it at all costs. Gathering his last strength, the man in the white coat released his beast soul, launching a powerful poison attack against the monster. The white-coated warrior concentrated all his strength and poison into a single projectile, his last hope to take down the creature. With a war cry, he released the arrow, declaring that this would be the end of the monster. The shot cut through the air at high speed, a beam of lethal energy going straight for the target. In the last instant, the bloodthirsty berserker realized the danger that was approaching, but it was already too late. The impact was accurate. For a moment, it seemed that the creature had been defeated, falling in silence. The spectators, relieved, believed they had witnessed an instant death. The battle seemed to be over. However, from the shadows, the creature rose again. The attack had not been enough to finish it off. Surprise took over everyone. The monster was still standing, and their hope was shattered in an instant. It was then that, out of nowhere, Han Sen appeared. Taking advantage of the distraction, he prepared a blow with his giant axe. With all his strength, the young man launched his own attack, aiming at the creature's weak point to deliver the coup de grace. The impact of the axe was devastating, opening a crater in the ground and finally silencing the berserker. The crowd was shocked to recognize the newcomer. It was Brother Coin, but no one understood what he was doing there. The warrior in the white coat, who had fired the arrow, was paralyzed, not understanding what had just happened. His confusion quickly turned to fury. He realized that Han Sen had stolen his reward and ordered his men to chase him. Meanwhile, Han Sen felt the absurd weight of the axe. He knew he needed to escape quickly before the furious group caught up with him. The white-coated warrior finally caught up to Han Sen, blocking the path with his imposing armor. He ordered the young man to stop immediately, as there was nowhere left to go. But Han Sen had no intention of obeying. He continued running desperately down the mountainside, completely ignoring the order. The group leader taunted him, shouting that there was no escape now. Seeing himself cornered, Han Sen realized the situation was critical. Tiredness and despair began to take over. He felt his strength was at an end and that he might not be able to escape that pursuit any longer. The pressure was simply immense. Each second felt like an eternity as he searched for an improbable way out. It was in this moment of despair that an old memory surfaced. His father's voice echoed in his mind. He remembered a training session when he was still a boy beside his father, learning the harsh lessons of survival. His father taught him that danger would always exist. Being cowardly and running away just because you were afraid was not an option for those who wanted to live. The memory continued, showing one of the tools his father used for situations like this, an arrow equipped with a smoke grenade. It was a strategy to create a distraction and gain a tactical advantage when all seemed lost. And with that tactic, the threat in the memory was neutralized. That training ended with his father's approving look and the notification that he had leveled up. In another memory, his father put him to the test. He asked if, to survive, Han Sen knew any way to become stronger instantly. The young Han Sen was silent, reflecting on the question. The answer to that old test was the key to his survival now, and the answer to his father's question came in the form of a memory. The memory of a moment of pride and the satisfaction of having completed a task for the first time. On that day, the young Han Sen had leveled up. That was the key, the only chance he had. It wasn't time to give up yet. Back in the present, the enemy's pressure was overwhelming. Han Sen knew he needed to act, and fast. That risky method was his only way out. With the decision made, a new determination arose in his gaze. He would do whatever it took to escape with his life. As he descended the mountain at high speed, Han Sen bet everything on his idea. If the plan worked, he would survive. The group leader, furious, yelled for him to die, not understanding what was about to happen. Han Sen knew it was a dangerous gamble, but it was his own path. He prepared for the transformation, merging the power of the Berserker Soul Beast. Suddenly, a colossal burst of energy erupted from Han Sen's body, shocking his pursuers. No one expected that. The force of the transformation threw one of the enemies away, who had no time to react. The system announced the successful fusion of two soul beasts, the bloodthirsty Berserker and the Black Armor Beetle. The fusion was complete. A new, more powerful form emerged in Han Sen's place. With his new armor and speed, he felt there was still hope. Now, with this transformation, no one would be able to stop him. The leader was incredulous and furious when he realized that Han Sen had stolen his sacred blood beast soul. He ordered everyone to pursue him at any cost, but it was too late. The complexity of the mountain and Han Sen's new speed made the pursuit impossible. Watching from afar, other groups were confused. They wondered who that mysterious guy was, who they heard being called Brother B. After the escape, Han Sen finally found a place to hide. He knew that a direct confrontation with Shen Tianzi would have been his end, so he decided to bury the golden axe he got. It was too valuable and too dangerous to keep with him. He felt relieved to have escaped. The decision to flee instead of fight was the only thing that kept him alive. Meanwhile, in the city, news of what happened was already spreading like wildfire. Everyone was commenting on Shen Tianzi's fury and the mysterious man who humiliated him. The story of how Shen Tianzi got so angry that he broke his own house became a joke among the other groups, who were amused by the rival's misfortune. Far from the rumors, in a secret room, a silver-haired woman was questioning one of her subordinates about recent events. She was especially interested in the identity of the mysterious man everyone was calling Brother Coin. The boy explained that he didn't know him well. He said that he only met him once and that the mysterious guy seemed to be a skilled hunter. The woman then made a proposal. She wanted him to contact Brother Coin and offer a high price for the sacred blood beast soul he had stolen, keeping the negotiation in total secrecy. Far from all this, in the depths of the mountain, Han Sen continued his journey to become stronger. He had just hunted a green scale beast and consumed its meat to absorb its energy and increase his gene points. His status panel showed his progress. He was close to maxing out his common genes, but the evolution of the primordial and divine genes was still a long way off. Suddenly, something in the water caught his attention. Something had emerged from the surface. Han Sen went on high alert, turning sharply towards the sound. He realized he wasn't alone. In the darkness of the forest, a solitary figure walked slowly towards him, enveloped in a faint, mysterious light. As the person approached, Han Sen noticed that their clothes were completely torn and they appeared severely injured. He had no idea who it was or what was happening. The figure approaching Han Sen finally emerged from the darkness. It was a young man who seemed to be in trouble, with his clothes all torn and his body covered in wounds. He walked with difficulty through the forest, clearly exhausted and needing help. Han Sen watched him, trying to understand the situation. The young man stopped in front of Han Sen, who offered him directions to the nearest shelter, the Steel Armor Sanctuary. Han Sen explained that he couldn't accompany him, as he still needed to hunt. He was giving advice, not offering an escort. However, the newcomer wasn't asking for help. He was demanding it. He wanted Han Sen to take him to the Glory Shelter, a place the protagonist didn't even know. The stranger's arrogant attitude made Han Sen completely lose his patience. He didn't have time to deal with orders from anyone. The other young man, in turn, didn't understand who he was talking to. He stared at Han Sen with an air of superiority, as if he were in control of the situation. Except he wasn't. In the blink of an eye, the stranger was thrown to the ground with a force he didn't see coming. Standing over him, Han Sen completely changed his tone. He was no longer offering help. He was giving a clear order, total obedience, and a trip to the sanctuary. Humiliated, the young man on the ground summoned his beast soul, materializing a spear in his hand. He stood up furiously, accusing Han Sen of asking for a beating. To him, that surprise attack was a mistake that would be paid for with blood. With a war cry, the young man advanced with his spear, delivering a blow that he believed was more than enough to end the fight. But the attack was useless. Han Sen stopped the spear's blade with his bare hands without showing any effort. The attacker was in total shock. He couldn't believe that his weapon, a bronze moon tooth spear, had been stopped like that. He recognized the technique, a hyper-geno art. Han Sen then gave him his last chance. Either the young man guided him to his destination, or the conversation would end right there, definitively. Han Sen saw the perfect opportunity. That man was seriously injured, and his armor seemed too valuable to ignore. He decided he wouldn't let this chance slip away. He advanced without hesitation, grabbing the knight and promising to send him straight to hell. The first confrontation was direct, testing the armor's resistance against Han Sen's brute strength. He soon realized that it was a sacred rank beast soul armor. With a greedy smile, Han Sen declared that even the gods were helping him and demanded that the item be handed over. The offensive continued, with Han Sen pressuring the opponent who could barely defend himself. The knight was shocked. Even injured, he didn't expect to find someone with so much strength and technique in those mountains. Han Sen knocked him down and stepped on him, showing that he would have no mercy. He humiliated the fallen man, saying that even with such powerful equipment, he was nothing but trash. A direct punch was thrown, a blow that should have ended the fight once and for all. Except that, at the last instant, the knight unleashed his true power. A berserker transformation was activated, completely changing the course of the battle. Now, in his complete form, the knight decreed that Han Sen would pay with his life. The counterattack came with absurd speed and strength, a devastating kick that Han Sen couldn't block. The impact was brutal, throwing the young man far away as he screamed in pain. The tables had turned. Completely defeated, Han Sen lay on the ground, questioning the identity of that man. The strength of his hyper-geno art was something he had never seen before. Later, already safe, Han Sen processed what happened. Despite the beating, he somehow came out of that encounter with a new high-level hyper-geno art in hand. Han Sen analyzed the crystal he got in the fight. It was a high-level hyper-geno art, which meant he wouldn't have to spend his savings to buy one anymore. Luck was on his side. Without wasting time, he inserted the memory crystal into a device to absorb all the knowledge contained there. The screen displayed the information of the technique he had just acquired. It was the jade skin technique, and the young man began to study every detail. Han Sen was extremely pleased with what he discovered. That skill was exactly what he needed to get stronger. 3 days passed. Han Sen was already practicing the icy jade skin, feeling the new and refreshing energy flow throughout his body. He soon noticed that the technique brought physical changes. His body seemed more resistant, and his skin smoother and more refined. When measuring his temperature, he confirmed another specialty of the skill. His body was permanently colder than that of a normal person. However, he knew he couldn't keep that crystal. Keeping proof of how he got the technique could bring him serious problems in the future. His thoughts were interrupted by an unexpected call from his friend, Zhang Danfeng. Han Sen answered and, after a brief conversation, asked where they were going. Meanwhile, in the car, his friends chatted excitedly about the latest feat of the mysterious Brother B, unaware that they were going to pick him up. The conversation took an odd turn when one of them commented on how embarrassing it would be for Han Sen's cousin, Han Hao, if he found out who the hero was. This brought back memories of the problems with his aunt, who despised him. The family situation was already complicated, and now her son was around too. Trying to ignore the bad thoughts, Han Sen asked his friend again where they were going after all. The answer came when the car stopped in front of an imposing building, the Starshine Martial Hall. The reason for the meeting was about to be revealed. At the Starshine Martial Hall, the crowd was ecstatic, shouting the name of a single fighter, Tang Zhenliu. The energy in the place was contagious. Meanwhile, Han Sen's friends discussed the fighter's feat, commenting that his name had been engraved on the sacred stele, an honor for few. But one of them wasn't impressed. For him, Tang Zhenliu was nothing compared to the legendary Brother B, the Blood Berserker. Another friend immediately disagreed, saying that this Brother B was just a despicable thief who stole someone else's sacred blood beast soul, and that the two couldn't be compared. Listening to the discussion, Han Sen remained silent. After all, he was the infamous Brother B. Keeping the secret seemed like the best option to avoid problems. Time passed. Half a month later, life went on. Han Sen now watched his new pet, a bronze-toothed beast that had evolved into a mutant form, an extremely valuable resource. He wanted to consume the creature to increase his own genes, but necessity spoke louder. At the moment, he needed money much more than power, and to get that money, he put on his armor and returned to God's sanctuary, ready for another hunt in search of an opportunity. It was then that he found a silver-haired woman wounded in a cave. She recognized him as Coin and ordered him to stop and carry her out of there. Han Sen was shocked by her audacity. Him? Carry her? The situation was completely unexpected. Impatient, the woman pointed to her own leg. She questioned his astonishment, making it clear that she was hurt and needed help. He analyzed the wound and realized that it had been caused by a poisonous crystal scorpion. He was intrigued as he knew she was too strong to be caught by such a creature. She explained that a mutant scorpion attacked her by surprise, but to ensure that he wouldn't take advantage of the situation, she summoned an energy dagger, the soul of a poisonous heart butterfly. The threat was direct. She challenged him, asking if he really thought his armor would be able to block an attack from that beast's soul. The tension increased instantly. Han Sen tried to explain himself, saying that she misunderstood everything. He had no ulterior motives. After all, she was the one who asked to be carried out of the cave. Her distrust caught him by surprise. Han Sen began to wonder, silently, if the woman happened to have the ability to read minds. He carried her on his shoulders and admitted that he needed money, but he wasn't in a hurry. Then, the young man asked about the mutant poisonous crystal scorpion she mentioned. The creature was nearby, already slain. It was exactly what Han Sen wanted as payment for the rescue. And so, their journey began through the bottomless pit mountain forest. The night was long and the path dangerous. Carrying his unusual burden, Han Sen crossed the dense forest, following the path out of that place. The woman instructed him to put her on the ground as soon as they reached the main gate. She knew he didn't want to be seen with her to avoid problems. As they approached, she reflected on how strong he was. The scorpion's venom didn't damage his armor, which made her suspect that he possessed a sacred blood beast soul. The negotiation for the axe he was carrying was intense. She played her last card, offering 6 million as her absolute limit. Han Sen accepted the offer. He said to prepare the money and that he would inform Su Xiaoqiao about the location and time of the exchange. Despite getting what she wanted, her expression showed that the price was high. That guy was smarter than he seemed. As soon as he arrived, Han Sen ran into a familiar figure. The look of contempt he received was not friendly at all. Han Sen showed no reaction, but the tension was palpable. He knew exactly who that guy was. As the protagonist tried to go on his way, a voice called him by name. It seemed he wouldn't be able to avoid an unwanted conversation. The guy who confronted him made his intentions very clear. He demanded that Han Sen pretend not to know him, stating that he didn't want his future ruined because of him. Han Sen didn't care about the contempt. To him, it made no difference to be underestimated by someone who was on a completely different level than him, and the reason for his confidence was right in front of him. After selling the items he got, Han Sen finally had the capital he needed to change his life. With all that money in his hands, he could only think of one thing. He could finally give his mother and sister, Yan Yan, a better life. And the first thing he did was take his family to the famous Sapphire Ice Cream Parlor, a place they had never been able to go before. The joy on his sister's face was proof that he was on the right track. It was for moments like this that all the effort was worth it. He promised himself that he would become even stronger. He would earn more money and ensure that his mother and sister had the life they deserved, full of happiness. However, when trying to go up to the second floor, they were stopped by an employee. The man informed them that that area was exclusive to celebrities and nobles. Han Sen was speechless. Being barred for not having status was a humiliation he didn't expect. Frustration took over the young man, but his mother intervened, trying to calm him down before the situation worsened. The narrative then returns to an earlier moment on the train. Han Sen, with a bruised face, was surprised to recognize the woman who was there. Qin Xuan. The woman, in turn, was furious. She didn't seem willing to listen to any explanation. She accused him of being despicable, stating that he harassed her on purpose and that he showed no remorse. For Qin Xuan, this wasn't the first time he had done something like that. She made it clear that she wouldn't let him escape so easily. Knowing that his destination was the sanctuary, Qin Xuan warned that she would be waiting for him there. It was then that the truth came out. The guards greeted her as Station Chief Qin, and Han Sen panicked. The woman he offended was, in fact, the leader of the station. Completely without a way out, Han Sen panicked. The woman he had offended was none other than the station chief, and he knew she wouldn't leave him alone. It was then that a man called him, offering a reward if he joined his group. It seemed like an opportunity, but the situation was too strange to be trustworthy. The man insisted, telling Han Sen to stop stalling and go with them, guaranteeing that they wouldn't treat him badly. The offer seemed more like an order than an invitation. Meanwhile, other men in the group celebrated their leader's generosity, who gave them money and even killed creatures so they could eat. They seemed loyal, but also disposable. Han Sen watched everything from a distance, trying to understand what was happening. That group seemed to be preparing for something big and dangerous. He wondered why Shen Yanzi and Lu Tianyang would need so many people for a mission. There was something very suspicious about that plan. The group finally arrived at their destination, a huge crater in the middle of the forest, the entrance to what appeared to be a deep, dark cave. The leaders confirmed that it was the right place. Their serious expressions indicated that the easy part of the journey was over. Without hesitation, one of the leaders ordered some men to go ahead to explore the cave. It was clear that they would be used as scouts or bait. With torches in hand, the vanguard group entered the darkness. The silence was total, and the feeling of danger increased with each step. The promise of receiving the rest of the money was what motivated them to continue, even knowing that they were entering a dangerous place. Soon, one of the men in front came back to warn the leader, whom he called Brother Luo, that the path had ended. They had reached a dead end, but the leader was already prepared. He threw inflatable boats into an underground river and ordered everyone to cross over to a cave on the other side. The boats fell into the water, ready for the risky crossing. Han Sen watched everything with suspicion. He noticed that the leaders weren't boarding, just sending the others. It became clear that they were being sent into a trap. Suddenly, the water exploded. The trap that Han Sen so feared was revealed in the form of a colossal creature that emerged from the depths. Screams of pure despair echoed through the cave, confirming that crossing the river would be anything but easy. Aboard the boat, Han Sen and the other men were on high alert, realizing too late the danger they were in. From afar, the leader watched with a satisfied smile. He confirmed that the sacred rank creature had finally appeared, exactly as he planned. The monster wasted no time and attacked one of the boats, devouring the men on board without the slightest difficulty. Panic spread instantly. The boats scattered at high speed, with each one desperately trying to save their own life. Even with the massacre happening, some still tried to convince themselves to fight. After all, they had already received the money and believed that numerical superiority would give them a chance. Han Sen tried to warn them, shouting that they were just throwing their lives away. He explained that Shen Tianzi was using them as bait, sending everyone to their deaths on purpose. On the shore, the leaders noticed that the monster seemed to have disappeared for a moment and ordered everyone to cross the river as quickly as possible. Han Sen finally understood the cruel plan. They were supposed to serve as a distraction to tire out the creature and clear the way for those truly interested. But he wasn't willing to be a sacrifice. A decision needed to be made at that very instant. Without hesitation, Han Sen jumped off the raft, abandoning the route that would lead him straight to certain death. On the other bank, the cost of the operation became evident. One of the survivors lamented that, of the 34 men who started the crossing, only 7 remained. Shen Tianzi and his accomplice walked right past the fallen men without showing any remorse. To them, the survivors were just disposable tools. With the empty rafts left behind, the leaders headed to the back of the cave. The path was finally clear, exactly as they had planned. After sacrificing their men, Shen Tianzi and the few survivors finally reached the heart of the cave, a vast and silent underground lake, and there was the prize they sought, 2 eggs of a sacred blood creature. Shen Tianzi celebrated, certain that this would increase his genetic power. Greed took over his face. The plan, despite being cruel, had been worth it. At least, that's what he thought at that moment. His subordinates picked up the eggs, eager to get out of that place as quickly as possible. But Shen Tianzi wasn't going to leave the treasure in just anyone's hands. He moved forward to take the eggs for himself. Only, out of nowhere, something knocked him to the ground. He barely had time to understand what was happening. A well-aimed punch hit him squarely in the face, sending the eggs flying through the air. And then, the thief revealed himself. A figure in golden armor caught the eggs in the air, declaring that they were now his. Without losing a second, the invader used the momentum to escape, leaving behind a humiliated and furious Shen Tianzi. Rage took over the leader. He wasn't going to accept being robbed after all the work he had done, but the cave wasn't done with them yet. A monstrous creature emerged from the water, right in the thief's escape path. The Golden Warrior, who thought he was clever, realized too late that the nest had a guardian. The creature attacked without warning, biting his arm and forcing him to drop one of the precious eggs. In a stroke of luck, the egg fell right into Shen Tianzi's hands. But the fall damaged it, and it began to crack, revealing something unexpected. Meanwhile, Shen Tianzi was exploding with rage. He had been deceived and robbed right under his nose, and he couldn't do anything about it. Far away, the thief, Han Sen, celebrated the success of his plan. He boasted about having stolen the 2 sacred beasts and imagined how furious Shen Tianzi must be. He was completely satisfied with the result. The plan had been risky, but the reward seemed worth it at that moment. Only the celebration didn't last long. Suddenly, a hand grabbed him tightly from behind, interrupting his escape. It was a woman with long white hair, and she didn't look happy at all. She questioned him, asking if he really thought he would be left alone. All of Han Sen's superiority vanished instantly. He realized that he had gotten into a much bigger mess than he imagined. The situation escalated into a duel. In a training room, the two prepared to settle their differences with strength. The warrior set the rules of the confrontation. If Han Sen could withstand 50 of her moves without falling, she would consider him the winner, and the debt would be paid. Han Sen listened attentively. The proposal seemed simple, but he knew that coming from her, nothing would be easy. Still, he accepted the challenge. The young man stated that he would stay on the defensive and that he would withstand her 50 blows without problems. But in the next instant, he broke his own promise and landed a direct punch in her face, without warning, without hesitation. Caught completely by surprise, the warrior staggered backward. She couldn't believe his audacity, calling him despicable. Han Sen pretended to be clueless, offering fake apologies. He asked, with a straight face, if they hadn't already started the fight. Her fury only increased. Ignoring the flimsy excuse, she simply gave the order for them to continue, and he obeyed to the letter. As soon as she finished the sentence, Han Sen advanced and landed another punch squarely, not giving her time to even breathe. The warrior's patience finally ran out. She exploded in fury, promising that she would finish Han Sen right there. But the difference in power was too great. Completely dominated, Han Sen could only beg for forgiveness, admitting that he was wrong. The fight ended in complete humiliation for the protagonist. He was beaten so badly that he could barely stay conscious. As he walked away, Han Sen reflected on the defeat. He admitted to himself that he was still too weak and that he urgently needed to get stronger. Meanwhile, in the shower, the warrior was also thinking about the fight. Even with his sneaky attacks, something about that fight intrigued her. She couldn't get Han Sen's movements out of her head. They were crude and lacked technique, but they had an explosiveness and a lack of hesitation that surprised her. After thinking, a decision was made. Han Sen wasted no time. Determined to never go through that humiliation again, he went straight to a training center. He arrived at the God War Martial Arts Hall, a place where fighters were divided by level: novice, intermediate, and advanced. There, an instructor explained that the place was so complete that even rare hypergene arts could be taught. The system was clear. Each class level gave access to increasingly complex techniques, from basic combat to the most powerful arts. But Han Sen wasn't there for the basics. He had a very specific goal in mind. The instructor assessed him. The technique the young man wanted wasn't for just anyone, and he questioned whether Han Sen's physique could handle the training. In another room, a boy watched a recording and was shocked by what he saw. He couldn't believe the old master was teaching that technique. It turns out the technique was famous for being somewhat inappropriate. Han Sen felt immense shame just thinking about how he would use those movements. Despite the shame he felt learning the new technique, Han Sen practiced it anyway. He just wasn't sure if all that effort would be worth it in the end, until he found the perfect place to train without anyone around to judge him. A confident smile appeared on his face, knowing he could move freely there. Already in the forest, wearing his full armor, Han Sen felt much more comfortable. It was time to finally test his new mutant beast soul. He prepared for the invocation, curious to see what kind of incredible power he had acquired, and from his hand, a small creature emerged in a soft flame. It was a black kitten, which just meowed harmlessly. Han Sen was completely confused. He expected a fighter or mount-type beast soul, the most common, but what he received was a pet. The little creature seemed totally harmless, just looking at him with a curious and docile expression. Still, Han Sen decided to test its combat power. He pointed to prey hidden in the grass, and the little feline obeyed, advancing in the indicated direction. The kitten jumped with everything it had to attack the creature. Only the attack was a complete disaster. The little animal simply bumped into the prey and was thrown away without causing any damage. The disappointment on Han Sen's face was evident. He couldn't believe that his long-awaited mutant beast soul was completely useless. The kitten came back to him, meowing as if apologizing. It was clear that it had no combat power. Han Sen realized he had been deceived. That little animal only knew how to be cute and weak. If he wanted dinner, he would have to do the work himself. So, Han Sen himself went on the attack. He himself would hunt that triangular scale beast for dinner that night. Later, while eating, he noticed the kitten's begging look. Despite its uselessness in combat, Han Sen couldn't resist and offered a piece of meat to the little creature. At another moment, Han Sen found himself in the middle of a dangerous situation, running to save his own life. Nearby, a man was on the verge of death, falling off a cliff and desperately begging for help. Han Sen knew he needed to survive to enjoy any reward. After all, the Mamo beasts chasing him could easily crush him. Without thinking twice, he used the terrain to his advantage to escape. Reaching a safe place, the young man reached out to the stranger, asking him to hurry and hold on. The rescue was a success. Exhausted, the man profusely thanked Han Sen for saving his life, while the beasts watched from below, unable to reach them. Catching his breath, the man explained the reason for the chase. Apparently, he had found a Mamo beast cub and ended up attracting the fury of the entire pack. He introduced himself as Lin Bei Feng and, calmer, asked Han Sen how far they were from the glory shelter. Han Sen's answer, however, shocked him. He realized that he had fled into the territory of another shelter and was completely lost. Even so, Lin Bei Feng promised a generous reward for the help, but Han Sen replied that, before anything else, they would need to get along on that journey. Lin Bei Feng agreed, relieved, without exactly understanding what the young man meant by that. Only then did Han Sen reveal his true intentions, offering some water and food for a hefty price. Desperate with hunger, Lin Bei Feng tried to negotiate. He begged for a little more food and promised to pay 4 times the value when they reached the shelter. But the negotiation didn't seem to have worked. Without another option, he had to accept his savior's terms. The days passed with the two trapped on top of the mountain, waiting for the beasts to finally leave. Tired of waiting, Han Sen decided to explore the mountain on his own. He crept through the rocks, looking for anything that might be helpful to their situation. And then, he found it. At the top of a cliff, inside a gigantic nest, was a smooth, shiny egg, bigger than anything he had ever seen. The discovery left him perplexed. What kind of monstrous creature could have laid an egg that size? And more importantly, where would it be now? Suddenly, the memory of a tense encounter came to mind. Han Sen remembered running into Station Chief Chin, greeting her as if it were a happy coincidence. She, however, showed no sympathy. Her expression was cold, and she seemed to completely ignore his presence, turning to leave. But Han Sen didn't let her go. He confronted her, stating plainly that he was no longer afraid of her and that things would be different than last time. The challenge was accepted. In a combat arena, the two prepared for a duel that should have happened a long time ago. Han Sen took the initiative, provoking her by saying that he learned from her the best way to attack, catching the enemy completely off guard. Chin responded with a swift aerial attack, confident that, without the element of surprise, The young man wouldn't stand a chance of victory against her. Her kick came down with incredible force, fast enough that most people wouldn't even be able to react in time. But Han Sen was not the same as before. With a precise movement, he intercepted the blow, grabbing her leg in the air. Taking advantage of the warrior's surprise, he used her as leverage and violently threw her against the arena floor. Except Qin wouldn't be defeated so easily. Before hitting the ground, she released a powerful wave of flaming energy. The impact of the explosion was devastating, opening a crater in the ground and showing the true extent of her hidden power. The shockwave threw Han Sen backward. He managed to regain his balance, but realized that this fight would be much harder than he imagined. Even after the impact, Han Sen's determination did not waver. He realized that, despite all his progress, the difference in power between them was still gigantic. The warrior, in turn, unleashed her full power. Han Sen's provocation forced her to use her beast soul, an ability she didn't expect to need. The confrontation seemed to have come to an end, with Qin's superiority clearly established. However, Qin was surprised. That kid forced her to use such great power, which proved that he was much stronger than last time. Dissatisfied, she pounced on him again, demanding that he fight seriously. For her, the level Han Sen was showing was still not his true potential. Later, with his whole body aching, Han Sen complained about Qin Xuan's brutality. His training partner definitely didn't take it easy on him. As he recovered, a futuristic vehicle landed near them, interrupting the moment. An imposing figure began to descend from the car. The newcomer complained to his companion about having to use a public teleportation device, predicting that they would find annoying people at the location. Suddenly, a familiar voice called out to Han Sen. The young woman, Zuishi, explained that she was there because she had finally reached the age required to enter the sanctuary world. Han Sen was impressed by how quickly time had passed and commented that, from now on, she would also grow and develop in that place. The man accompanying Zuishi approached, making it clear that he was not happy with the situation. He repeated his complaint about the teleportation, looking around with disdain, as if the mere presence of other people was a nuisance. Noticing the tension, Zuishi quickly intervened. She explained to her fourth brother that there was no misunderstanding, as Han Sen was just a childhood friend. Han Sen, however, was not intimidated in the least by the newcomer's attitude. He stood firm, prepared for whatever came next. The fourth brother addressed Han Sen with an air of superiority, making it clear that he did not consider him worthy of his attention. He then stood in front of Huishi, warning Han Sen not to bother her, or he would regret it. The threat was direct. With a smirk, the man asked if the protagonist wasn't convinced, as if he was eager for an excuse to teach him a lesson. Han Sen's response was immediate. Before the fourth brother could even blink, the young man advanced with impressive speed. In a single fluid movement, Han Sen knocked him down and pinned him to the ground. The fight was over before it even started. The man could only let out a grunt of pain and surprise, completely humiliated by the speed of the attack. Zuishi watched everything, shocked by the scene that had just unfolded before her eyes. Han Sen got up and calmly told her not to worry. He explained that this was just a welcome gift, a common ritual among men. As Zuishi helped her brother up, the man still seemed to be processing the humiliating defeat he had just suffered. But as he stood up, he wore a sinister smile. He asked Zuishi to invite Han Sen to a meal at his house in a few days. The invitation sounded more like a promise of revenge. Later, Han Sen was already focused on his own problems. He needed money and resources, so he started looking for deals on an online forum. He pondered over the options. Since he couldn't hunt beasts at the moment, he needed to find another way to make money fast. Soon, He found a bodyguard job offer with a generous payment and decided to register for the position. However, before accepting any job, there was a bigger problem. He needed a new weapon since his spear had been destroyed in a previous battle. Still pondering which weapon to use, Han Sen wondered if he had brought the right equipment for the job he was about to accept. He arrived at the meeting point and came across the group he was supposed to protect, a blonde young master and his companions. The young master, who introduced himself as Yuan, seemed overly confident, boasting that his luck had always been good. The young man's attitude caused a certain strangeness in one of the other guards hired for the mission. The other members of the group wasted no time and began to question Yuan's decision, openly mocking Han Sen and calling him useless for the protection job. One of the men approached Han Sen with a warning, telling him not to betray the young master's trust. Han Sen just replied that his luck never abandoned him. With the introductions made, the group set off, entering a dense, dark forest. It wasn't long before one of the scouts spotted the expedition's target, announcing that he had found primitive creatures just ahead. The woods were dense, and danger seemed to lurk in every shadow between the trees. Immediately, the other bodyguards ran ahead, shouting orders to protect the young masters at all costs. Han Sen, however, remained calm in the rear. He simply prepared his arrows, ready to act at the right moment. He knew that the souls of those creatures were resilient, but he calculated that he would only need a little more strength to get the job done. Han Sen's calm seemed to irritate one of the other guards, who watched him with an expression of total disdain. Ahead, the group finally found the monsters, a pack of greenish, ferocious beasts blocking the way. Without hesitation, the young Master Yuan advanced with his sword in hand, delivering a powerful blow against the creatures. He was skilled, but the real fight was just beginning. Han Sen watched the fight from afar, unperturbed. He knew that the others' inexperience in combat would soon become a problem, and he just needed to wait for the right moment to act. The first monster fell, and the group celebrated what seemed like an easy victory. They lowered their guard, believing the danger had passed. One of the men stepped forward, arrogantly declaring that those were their prey. He acted as if the hunt was already over, but he was wrong. The creature, which everyone thought was dead, suddenly got up and attacked one of the group members. The celebration was short-lived. The young Master Yuan screamed in despair as he saw his companion Ah Ching about to be devoured. The situation got out of control in the blink of an eye. The other guards rushed to help, stabbing the creature non-stop. But it was a precise arrow that pierced the air and saved Ah Ching's life at the last second. Everyone turned and saw Han Sen, still standing in the distance with his bow. He had resolved the crisis with a single shot, exactly as he planned. However, instead of thanking him, one of the men approached Han Sen, furious. He accused him of being reckless and almost injuring the young master with his arrow. Only, to everyone's surprise, the young Master Yuan intervened. He grabbed the guard himself by the collar, defending Han Sen from the unfair accusation. Yuan kicked out the group of opportunists, calling them shameless and telling them never to appear in front of him again. His loyalty was with the one who really saved him. He threw the payment up in the air, telling them to take the money and disappear. For Yuan, they were nothing more than a bunch of useless people. After resolving the situation, Yuan turned to Han Sen, revealing that he knew his true identity. He also recognized the powerful bow that the young man used, a weapon that required immense strength to wield. With the mission accomplished, Han Sen finally returned to the camp. He had gained a new and powerful ally, but his mind was already elsewhere, thinking about the mysterious egg he found and the inevitable confrontation that awaited him.